Hello, everyone, and welcome. Happy to see everyone here today, and really, really happy to see Andy with us today. It's not the first time, it's not even the second time. I can't even count how many times Andy has spoke with us. But I'm so thrilled that he is coming back every couple months to really show us what's new in the world of social media marketing, what's new in the world of social media platforms. Because, oh boy, there's a lot happening all the time that it makes it so hard to keep up and even harder to understand what it actually means for us and where we should be potentially putting our attention. So, without any further ado, I will hand over the stage to Andy and let him introduce himself a little bit to those of you who are new here, and of course, dive straight into what I am sure will be a very intense, I don't know, 45 minutes an hour. We'll let Andy talk for as long as he needs to because there's always so much value. The favorite quote from one of our members from Kirsty was that Andy's webinars are always high on content calories. So get ready to roll. Andy, the floor is yours.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much, Lenka, and thank you everyone for giving me a bit of time. So yeah, I'll try and keep this as short as possible because it's also worthwhile saying that whilst I will give you an update of everything that's happening in the world of social, all the things that you need to know, don't think that suddenly you need to turn around and implement all of these into your strategies. This is more about giving you context so that you can make better decisions as to how you might augment your strategies based on what's right for your business. Because what's right for someone, where you might see someone smashing stories or video content, it might not be that same thing for you, right? So it's all very individual. Some of the bits that I'll go through will inspire you and think, right, that's an area of my strategy that I need to evolve. Some of you will think, okay, I don't need to change anything. I'm just kind of nice. It's nice to know contextually what's happening in the industry. I always like to just get that out of the way with first because, you know, it can be very easy to be overwhelmed in the world of social. And I don't want to add to that. I want to help kind of reduce the overwhelm really by giving you one single place to go, right, now I know what's happening in the world of social. I can make better decisions with my strategy. So yeah, as part of this, however, I'm happy to share this deck as well. So, and I'm sure, Lenka, this is being recorded, right? So anyone who needs to...
This is being recorded. It will be available in the Facebook group. It will be available on our website for those who are not on Facebook. And we will attach your slide deck for people who want to see some slides, a little bit more detail, and everything that will come with it.
Beautiful. Perfect. So yeah, just a quick bit of background. Let's get the boring bit out of the way first. I'm Andy. I'm one of the founding team of a company called ContentCal, which you might have heard of. It's become the fastest growing content marketing tool, which is very exciting, of which you are able to check out just by Googling us if you've not heard of us already. But the reason that's kind of important because we spend our lives in the world of social, looking about what's happening down the track in the world of social to try and make sure our platform supports it. So rather than us just housing that information internally, what I try and do is share as much of the insight that we get from social media platforms directly externally with everyone else too. So we're going to start with some data, and then we're going to go into a couple of trends around what we see happening, certainly from an organic content perspective. And anyone that has seen Lenka and I talk previously, we're always talking about the benefits of organic. So we'll talk around that, and then we're going to talk about the specific changes that have happened. So data, let's start with the league table. So where are we at for monthly active users, daily active users as of today? Facebook still absolutely ruling, 2.8 billion monthly active users, followed by YouTube and Instagram. TikTok is the fastest growing out of all this, 732 million monthlies. But there's, of course, some platforms that we can't get the same level playing field data with. Oftentimes I'm getting asked questions around like, why don't I see like LinkedIn data on these charts? LinkedIn don't publish monthly actives, only their total registered users, which is large, but we know that LinkedIn's actives aren't quite as high as that. So that's why they're kind of slightly different and offset on this league table. The rest of it, no massive change. Instagram still continues to grow, but the pace of TikTok will very much see TikTok overtake Instagram before the end of the year, I expect. But the thing that they're competing towards, where TikTok is absolutely winning, is the time spent on social. So the overarching theme here is that the average user, this is US data, but you can expect typically social trends start in the East, so start in China, get adopted by the US, and then come to Europe. So it's always good to look to what's happening in China and the US as a good example of what's going to happen in the UK in terms of behavior on social. Something that's happening in TikTok is that the average user in the US, that is at the moment, spends 24.5 hours per month on TikTok. So just to contextualize that, that is nearly a whole working week per month spent on TikTok, which is ridiculously big. And that dwarfs that of Instagram and absolutely from Facebook as well. And that really is the prize that Instagram are absolutely going after. Instagram put out a very big announcement, which we'll talk about in a sec, about the fact that they're pivoting, it's our favorite tech term, their direction of Instagram to no longer wanting to be seen as a photo sharing app. Instagram want to be seen as an entertainment first video app. So, given that kind of slightly strange description, it's clear who they're going after with this. And the reason they're going after it is because the biggest prize on social isn't necessarily monthly active users. It's about people that are binging on content and spending hours on a platform. That is where the opportunity exists. And that's why Instagram are changing the direction of their product to go directly after TikTok. So it's going to be a very interesting one to watch. Let's talk about organic social benchmarks as a high level. Some interesting stuff came out of this, and this was from research from over 250,000 Facebook pages conducted by a company called Social Bakers. So this isn't our research, it's just research by another tech company that I respect. Very interesting is that out of all of these top Facebook pages, when we say top Facebook pages, this is the top 250,000 Facebook pages by number of followers. So probably larger brands, right? Live video was the thing that drove the more interactions than anything else. Very interesting. And I think actually live Facebook video is actually something that's missing from a lot of people's strategies. And it's very interesting to see quite the delta between typical content on Facebook versus live video. So that seems to perform very well when you look at an average across all of these Facebook pages. Link posts perform, not massively worse, but clearly they're one of the worst performing content formats. So as a reminder, link post is when you put a link in a post and it generates that little link preview and you post it like that. That's a link post. Image posts, as we know, fairly obvious what that is, perform quite well, but video doesn't quite live up to expectations. And, it underperforms a little bit. And we see the same on Instagram as well. So this data that I'm hovering over here is Instagram data, where, video once again underperforms image. And this is backed up by other research that I've seen. So what I'm saying here isn't necessarily to say that you need to stop doing video content. Definitely not. But also equally, don't feel pressured into doing lots of video content, because actually as a content format, when you look across Instagram and Facebook, which are not video first platforms, video is actually an additional to, is actually not typical user behavior, right? People typically go to the platforms to scroll through, posts of which they can quickly, have a look at and move on, not watch video. So it's kind of interesting why we've seen video not perform very well as a post format. But yeah, live video, however, is absolutely the exception. So that's some really interesting insight here. Talk about post length, and we're going to focus just on Instagram in this instance. Post length, interesting inverted bell curve we can see here, where typically the takeaways from this is that posts perform the best with under 50 characters on Instagram. So very short, snackable content, entertainment value, unsurprisingly. But actually, don't let that completely deter you from adding some real depth and rich value to your content, because the kind of interesting, dichotomy of this actually is that post performance actually increases the more text you add. So if it's rich, if it's engaging, if it's interesting, fundamentally, don't let that put you off. So I appreciate I've given you a bit of a kind of advice from two ends of the spectrum, but goes to show that, typically as a rule of thumb, shorter content will perform better. But if you've got something really valuable and interesting, in depth to say, don't let that rule of thumb put you off expressing, something more in depth. And the final bit of research from this was around hashtags. I see a lot of different advice around hashtags. And very interestingly, though, there's a couple of bits of advice here. Well, not necessarily advice, but interesting context to add to our thinking. is that when you look, this is predominantly around Instagram. Oh, it's completely around Instagram. And it's around 3 million Instagram posts. So it's a very big sample. And actually, because this is related to the top brands by number of followers, it's kind of unsurprising why content with 0 hashtags actually performs better than content with some hashtags. Bigger brands don't need to rely on hashtags as part of their strategy. But when you kind of take a step back and look at the kind of median interactions, you see 1 to 2 and 3 to 4 performing kind of well. So typically what I would say for brands that don't have a significant footprint, yes, hashtags are important. Don't hashtag stuff. Somewhere between 1 to 7 hashtags looks to be, based on this data, a good sweet spot for brands that aren't, established and don't need to use hashtags. So let's look at some best times to post. This is data that's been contributed to by about 20,000 different posts that have been analyzed. So fairly statistically significant. So we're going to go through platform by platform. Firstly, so this is best time to post on Instagram. Typically Monday through Friday, really 11 a.m.s are good, with a slight peak on Wednesday between 11 and 12. All these slides will be shared with you. Facebook, once again, morning time, but slightly earlier, 9 till 11 seems to be like the core behavior in the weekdays. The worst day is the weekends, particularly on Sunday. There is less competition for content on a Sunday, so some people actually, content performs really well on the weekend. And if that's you, don't change your strategy just based on what I'm saying here. We're just looking at an average. But fundamentally, morning times seem to be the key. Very much the same on LinkedIn. They're all following a very similar trend. The actual windows on LinkedIn for best performing posts are broader, but as a rule of thumb, I definitely would back this up from my own learning, or my own experimenting, is that absolutely 9 a.m. is optimum time. Similar thing with Twitter as well, although Mondays don't seem to factor too much on Twitter, which is quite interesting. Absolutely, the spikes of engagement are between 9 to 12 Tuesdays and Thursdays. Basically, the rule you can take out of all of this, mornings seem to be the place where engagement reigns supreme, somewhere between 9 to 12 across all platforms. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, typically those kind of core 3 days in the midweek, typically, if you're trying to create some like level benchmarks across all platforms, is typically where we'll see, the peak of engagement. So they're your benchmarks. So let's go into what's new. So with that kind of data analysis to give us a bit of background to orientate our strategies based on some trends and some data we've seen over the last few months, let's look at what's new. And we're going to look at it from a platform by platform perspective. And let's do this over the next 20 minutes or so. Firstly, Facebook are launching Bulletin. So this is their newsletter platform. For anyone that's seen regular updates that I do, newsletters are frequently becoming a more significant part of social. LinkedIn are slowly rolling out their newsletters. Newsletters are already part of Twitter, now coming to Facebook. And what newsletters are is a way for you to drive subscribers to a core piece of content you put out on a weekly basis. Now, that doesn't seem like anything new, right? It's a newsletter. We all get that. But the really interesting thing about applying this to social is that, let's imagine you're on Twitter, right? Or on Facebook. Your company page or your profile on Twitter will have maybe, let's say, 1,000 followers. A large proportion of those followers will be highly engaged, people that actually want to follow you because they're interested in your content, interested in you, etc. But there'll also be a proportion of those followers that actually barely ever get served your content because they never engage with it, etc. And those followers are actually pointless. So the reason I'm saying this is that's where newsletters becomes really important, because newsletters allows you to kind of create an inner sanctum of more engaged subscribers, of which isn't determined on an algorithm as to whether they're going to see your content or not. You subscribe them into your bulletin or your newsletter on Twitter, for example. That means that every week when you submit that content, everyone sees it. That is the core difference. And that's where this can be really powerful to use in our strategies, where we can have more kind of exclusive content to have for our newsletter subscribers that we wouldn't necessarily put out on social, because we now are getting in much more control of the content that we'll share and the content that's going to be seen by others. Once again, like not being beholden to an algorithm as to whether our content's going to be seen. So I'm a big fan of this personally, and you're going to see this kind of newsletter approach and the approach to kind of get a more like ardent set of followers to your page, and a way to have a community within your page as a really significant move for a lot of these social platforms. Facebook is a minor update, but it kind of gives us a bit of an interesting idea about this, is that Facebook are now featuring Reels in their feed, which tells me a couple of things. That Reels hasn't taken off in the way that they would have liked it to have done. And it also means that Facebook are relying on the 2.8 billion monthly active users to try and increase the reach and the use of Reels. So that's more of an FYI, but it also does mean, however, that if we're using Reels as part of our strategy, that means that Reels can be repurposed, or that Reel rather, can be repurposed on Facebook too, which kind of amplifies and multiplies our approach for social, meaning that we can get in multiple channels and utilize the content that we've created for more impact, which is the important thing here. Facebook are launching a whole heap of new group admin tools. So if anyone runs a group, a Facebook group that is, that I definitely recommend checking these out. Just Google new Facebook group admin tools. There's a lot that they've released. Facebook are pushing heavily on groups still. They see that as a key growth area. And my advice would remain the same as it has been for a little while now, is that if you're a organization with a Facebook page that potentially doesn't do very well, I would be looking towards creating a group as a way to grow my Facebook strategy. To be honest, groups are what Facebook are investing increasingly large efforts in. And when you see platforms like this investing efforts in features like groups, you know that they're going to continue to push that in the newsfeed to drive utilization. Facebook are hopping on the audio train. Now, I'm getting sick of saying this, to be honest. It's like someone's released their Clubhouse competitor. You know, they're all at it. And Facebook, basically it was Facebook's turn in June. So they released audio rooms. So same functionality as Clubhouse, dive into rooms, listen in, be able to unmute your line, be invited to stages and all that kind of stuff. Really similar. But the kind of core thing that I think that's different here, and why I think this is going to be a good one at Facebook, is that they're only launching audio rooms in Facebook groups and for influencers/celebrities. And what that means is that it creates a lot more control around the curation of these audio rooms. The thing that hampered Clubhouse, as they found out, as Clubhouse's growth has been declining, is that it's very hard for people to find good content that isn't a huge waste of time. You know, some people like that serendipity or that chance or whatever, but a lot of people like you and I that have finite hours in a day, we want to know that if we're going to consume some content, it's going to be up our street. So this really allows group admins to run these audio rooms, which I think is a beautiful extension and natural extension to Facebook groups, to allow deeper, richer connection with a group. Right, Link is a great example of doing this, like what we're doing right now. So nothing connects quite like the human voice. So audio rooms and Facebook groups, natural bedfellows. So I think Facebook have pulled a masterstroke by, you know, embedding audio rooms in groups and communities that exist already, which means the whole kind of curation and discovery of content and discovery of audio rooms that you'll like becomes a whole heap easier, because already they're being made available by people that you respect and groups that you're in already. Similar to this audio approach as well, Facebook are increasing their support for podcasts. So if you run a podcast today, this is a significant update. So people can not leave Facebook and listen to your podcast in their stream. So that's significant, really. If you have a podcast, it means that Facebook becomes an increasingly important promotional channel for your podcast, because it's not like saying, hey, I've done a podcast, here's a link, you know, register somewhere else and just have a link post. You actually help to create a better experience for your followers on Facebook by having that podcast that you're linking to being able to be played back in stream. E-commerce, I talk about this a lot. This is really the thing that's kind of underlined the growth of social for the last 18 months, pushing heavily into e-commerce. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whilst it looks like they're kind of after each other as social platforms, and there's to a degree that's true, the thing that really after is a slice of Amazon's business. So they see an opportunity, they being the social platform, see a significant opportunity in being the destination for shopping. So that's then creating some really interesting kind of pivots as to where social media platforms are going. And so this is Facebook's latest e-commerce push. So part one, they're increasing the availability of Facebook shops and integrating it into WhatsApp. That is a beautiful consumer experience, right? So you could message a business on WhatsApp, through their Facebook shop, just start up a WhatsApp conversation, check their stock, and order directly on WhatsApp as well. So creates a really nice consumer experience of integrating DM discussions with like availability and what product you want with the vendor itself, and then making that purchase directly through WhatsApp. Very powerful. Then augmented reality ads. Anyone that uses Snapchat or Pinterest fairly regularly, this already exists. Can't get my words out today. This allows people allows you to run ads and allows people to try on certain products as part of this advertising experience. Creates much more interactive, in-depth ads. Like in this example, trying on a shade of lipstick in this example, right? And it allows you to tailor that product. As you can see, Shop Now will direct directly to your Facebook shop page, allowing you to make that purchase. So that then creates much more advertising, in-depth, rich advertising capability and functionality to people that run Facebook shops. Point three, Facebook shops is going to Facebook Marketplace. Marketplace has typically been kind of like an eBay style peer-to-peer type of shopping experience. Now this is becoming much more kind of B2C shopping experience, integrating this into Marketplace. I think that's kind of interesting, a very interesting move, because there's a whole heap of users in Marketplace. Marketplace is becoming quite a core part of Facebook's user experience. So this will be another boost to shops. And then once again, very similar to what Pinterest do already, visual search. And for me, this is one of the key parts of the e-commerce ecosystem on social, and where Amazon don't have a foothold, is that when you don't know what you want to buy, when you're trying to discover stuff or be inspired by stuff, Amazon is rubbish. It's great for making clear, quick purchases for things that you want to buy. What social media platforms have in their armory is discovery, is influencers, connections, it being inspired by products, goods, services, those kind of things that you want to use. So visual search allows you, if you found something in your feed where this guy's wearing this t-shirt that you might like, you can hover over it and it will show search results of products available by similar vendors. So that is something that Pinterest do already with a Pinterest lens. Like you could waggle the Pinterest app at, a lampshade that you got on your desk, and it will show you similar lamps by other vendors. It's that similar approach. So once again, creating a much more rich e-commerce experience from a Facebook perspective. That was lots of conversation on that, loads of happening in Facebook. So, but e-commerce becoming a big thing. Instagram. Now this will get people very excited. Instagram is considering rolling out link stickers in stories to everyone. Currently, as we know, we can't have swipe up links on our stories unless we have 10,000 followers. For most of us mere mortals, we don't have that. So we're, resort to having to just say link in bio if we want to link to something. Now, in this instance, link stickers are potentially going to be available to everyone, and they'll look like this, fairly self-explanatory. We get call to actions on Instagram content. They're testing this at the moment. They haven't confirmed a rollout yet, but they're looking like they're considering it. So that will mean game-changing things to our Instagram strategy, that's for sure. Instagram's also launched multi-brand partnerships. So what that means, and sorry about the slightly ropey screenshot, is like you will have seen this before when you see an influencer working with a brand to say like in paid partnership with one organization. We can now do this with multiple brands. So this just opens up more opportunity for collaboration, and multi-party collaboration on content means really powerful things, because it means that you increase the reach because more people are sharing it and it gets shown to more feeds. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of that. We've wanted this for a while, and this came out in June. New engagement insights for Reels and Instagram live broadcasts, of which you can see this. It should be live for everyone. So in your insights within your Instagram app, you'll be able to see how your Reels are doing and how your live broadcasts are doing. I'm very interested to see if anyone does Reels fairly regularly, the kind of results you're getting. I've heard quite mixed reports from Reels, from people doing Reels rather. So I'd be really interested to see whether people are seeing any good results from that. But either way, we can now actually tell at last. So this is a good update. Instagram now allow you to hide like counts, is what it is basically. Well, it does what it says on the tin, but allows you at an individual level to choose whether you want to hide like counts on your posts to move away from those kind of slightly more vanity metrics if you want to. Big update once again around more e-commerce and this whole creator economy. I think the other big strand of social outside of the e-commerce stuff we're speaking about is all about the creator economy. What that basically means is individuals that have grown communities on social having the ability to create businesses in their own right just off the strength of their own personal brand. That's been a thing for a while, but it's growing, and we're going to see more and more of that. So the creator affiliate program makes it easier for creators to earn money by recommending products that they like. So this isn't like full-blown, affiliate partner. Sorry, this isn't full-blown like influencer partnership where you're paying people to post. This is if you sell products that would make sense for people to recommend. Like we at ContentCal have an affiliate program where people that love us and that want to talk to others about us have the ability to share that with others in return for a commission for any sale that they make. So this has now become much easier to facilitate on Instagram because now you can have an affiliate marketplace and people can sign up to become affiliates, and you can see how often people are sharing content about you and how much they're making through your affiliate program. This will mean significant thing for brands that want to lean in on this as an approach, because it really helps extend the reach of our content. Same thing about this creator economy, because this whole creator economy is going to mean significant things for our business, and it does mean significant things in the future for our social strategy, because we need to think not just about the content that we're producing, but the content that we can work with others to produce, creators as such, right? So that is a bit of a side note, but for us at ContentCal, how we work with others in the co-creation of content has been a core part of our strategy and the most successful part of our content strategy. Anyway, that's a side note. We can talk about that on another session. But just to go to show the importance of creators, and creators are going to continue to build their own communities. So creator shops is another thing, just like Facebook and Instagram shops, but for businesses. But creators are becoming brands in their own right, where they're starting to sell their own merchandise. So Instagram are creating shops to allow them to do that. What the net effect of this is going to be, it's going to be more creators, more people with communities coming to these platforms to create their businesses, which means more opportunity for collaboration with individuals for us as businesses. Stars Challenge is another way that Facebook and Instagram in particular, are incentivizing more creators to the platform. So what Instagram are doing are incentivizing creators to create X amount of live streams per month, X amount of stories per month, and incentivizing them with stars. Basically, what the stars actually can be exchanged for is cash, the things that actually matter to most people. But it just goes to show like the incentives that these platforms are putting in to attract creators to build their audience on this platform, which has the kind of net effect of bringing more distinct communities, bringing us more opportunities to collaborate, create UGC in collaboration with these creators. Another really important one, group fundraisers. Just in the same way that you have like justgiving.com, Virgin Giving, and all these other platforms, Instagram are doing the same, allowing people to contribute to a fundraise that you're doing and see, as you can see and track the fundraise progress. Really important part of a strategy to use if you're a kind of non-profit, you're in the fundraising game. Significant update. Facebook have done it, and Instagram have done a huge amount over the last 18 months in helping non-profits raise awareness and raise funds. So yeah, credit to them. Probably most obvious update as we expected, Reels ads have launched. So we have no idea in data whether they work well or not, but you can now run ads in Reels if you so choose. Instagram also rolling out suggested posts. So they've been doing this for a while, but they're starting to put this into the feed more and more, and you'll start to notice this more and more, where there'll be content suggested, based on what you like. So this is a big kind of TikTok kind of move, because TikTok's algorithm is very, very smart. anyone who's frequented TikTok will know that you just keep on getting served content, which will keep you on like a content binge down some crazy wormholes of content. Instagram doesn't do that typically. Shares content with you from the hashtags that you follow or the people that you follow. That's what goes into your feed. But Instagram increasingly are putting in suggested posts of accounts you don't follow, just based on your previous behavior / hashtags, the copy. So that means for us as a strategy, Instagram hashtags continue to be very important to make sure like the topics of our content is really relevant, so that the algorithms can help our content be served to those that don't follow us. So this really does help the reach of our content and changes the experience for us as consumers on Instagram. Right, cool. Let's go on to the next one. Facebook and Instagram were the two chunkiest ones for the updates. So the updates will be a bit quicker now. So as we're half an hour in, we'll do another 15 minutes, I think. So one single update from LinkedIn. They're a bit slower moving on LinkedIn. We now have the ability of boosting our organic posts. I really like this. We will have seen this on Facebook for years. But if we've had a post that's done quite well organically, we can now boost that to help more people see that. And we can also run ads for our events as we start getting back to being able to run in-person events. This will help drive those registrations for those. I did say it was mostly about Facebook and Instagram, but actually Twitter have been very, very busy. You might have heard of Twitter Audio Spaces, which is their Clubhouse competitor. So they released that a couple of months back. Haven't seen any growth data related to that yet, so not too sure as to how successful it's been. But they've now rolled that out to the web as well, rather than it just being limited to a mobile device. So improves accessibility of audio spaces. It's now available to Android as well. They've made some significant updates to how we can schedule these audio spaces, how we can edit scheduled spaces. To be honest, all of this seems quite basic, but they've ramped up so quickly to take away, to get ahead of Clubhouse, basically. All of the things that Clubhouse haven't done or have taken a long time to do, like scheduling of spaces, being able to do, being available on Android, for example. All of those things that you would expect, Twitter Audio Spaces have done straight out of the gate. But the most important thing for me is that you can now download this. So not only is this transcribed, we can download the audio file as well, which when we're talking about how we repurpose and reuse our content, this is very, very significant, because we can take the transcription, make it a blog, we can take the audio file, snip it up to make it into a podcast, into kind of little snippets that we could share on social, for example. Repurposing, now, as Lenka will agree, should be a core part of any piece of content that you create. And when you're thinking about the content you're creating, you should be thinking about all the different formats that can be in, because it means that you can create more content with less creative uplift, because you don't have to think about a new theme, a new topic. You can create about one core piece of content, a nice deep topic, and extend that across multiple formats. So yeah, I love that as a theme. Twitter Blue has launched. What's Twitter Blue? So it is their subscription platform, allowing what they class as power users of Twitter to get access to exclusive features. Number one being the ability to recall a tweet that's been posted already, which is kind of as close as Twitter will get to an edit button, along with a whole load of other new features that help people kind of make collections. And it's also kind of a bit of a badge of honor, because anyone subscribed to Twitter Blue, you can see that within their profile as well. So it's clear that they're a subscriber, a kind of premium Twitter user. So a badge of honor. But the reason I'm talking about this is that whilst this doesn't make any difference from our content strategy, what it does do is helps us kind of think about the direction where social media is going. And we'll talk about this more at the end, but as we've already seen through like the newsletters and through these kind of subscription tools like this, is that social media is actually starting to decrease its reliance on ads so much and thinking more about smaller niche communities. And that as a theme, I could absolutely get behind. So, I'm very interested to see if other networks follow suit in having more kind of distinct, pay to play offerings, which will very much change the dynamic, certainly of how we advertise on social and also how we'll build communities. That's more just kind of thinking for now. Definitely doesn't need any changes to our strategies right now, but interesting to see the direction. Twitter, once again, newsletter subscription offering. So people can subscribe to newsletters on Twitter. So exclusive content can be served to them, just as we saw with Facebook. So Twitter doing this too. And you can now run ticketed audio spaces, and super follows has now become a thing. So super follows, once again, allows people to pay to follow certain individuals, to get access to exclusive content, to get certain things first, for example. Basically, the view of this is not just about monetization for creators, again, like we've seen this, both from spaces and super follows. It's also about like the creation of smaller, really engaged communities that really want to hear from you and will even pay for the privilege of hearing from you. And I think that is a really interesting direction. And at last, Twitter have been kind of in the doldrums for a bit, but I really see them as leading the way of pushing what the future of social might look like, where it potentially isn't all about, vanity metrics of I've got 100,000 followers. Actually, it's about, that depth of engagement. Who is my kind of tribe and my community that truly care about the stuff that both I'm saying and truly, becomes a valuable community where there is mutual benefit in amongst those community members. That is kind of where Twitter's heading, and I love the idea of this. Simple update, Twitter's allowing tweets to be shared to stories. I like this social post, a bit of banter between Instagram and Twitter. But ultimately, you can now share your tweets on Instagram stories using your iOS device, and you can see it, how it works here. Once again, about repurposing and sharing content, Instagram knows that so many people take a screenshot of a tweet that's done really well and chuck it as a story, but you can make it easier here. So if you've put a tweet that you're proud of, or that has gone down pretty well, sharing it to a story, once again, extends the utility of that content to more platforms, maximizing engagement by putting your content to as many platforms, therefore being seen by as many people as possible. Pinterest, few updates. They launched idea pins. This is a bit of a fake launch, really, because they used to call them story pins. But actually, because they're not ephemeral, they don't disappear after 24 hours like other stories. It didn't make sense to call them story pins because they are more about inspiration. And that's where Pinterest is very much going down the line of inspiration, how people can discover new stuff that they've not discovered before. So they're calling this idea pins. These pins or stories, which they are basically a story in every way other than they don't disappear, but they look and feel like stories. But as they don't disappear, this is kind of a way of getting people inspiration on certain pieces of content, products, services, etc. And that feeds quite nicely into what they're doing with shops, exactly the same Facebook shops. All the stuff I said about e-commerce applies to Pinterest. As you can see, they've created a really nice, beautiful, simplified experience. The way that Pinterest designs things is always, absolutely top drawer. So if you're an e-commerce brand, absolutely. E-commerce focusing on B2C type of stuff. So if you're in food or fashion, Pinterest should absolutely be a core part of strategy. Pinterest growth is significant, and the investment into e-commerce is significant too. I love this shopping list one, once again, about inspiration. So if you discover something on Pinterest that you like the look of, you can save that to your shopping list as well. So once again, this shows social media's power over things like Amazon for when it comes to e-commerce, because we can find things, the algorithms serve us content based on our previous, likes and behaviors. We can even use like our augmented reality lens to discover new inspiration of certain things that we want to discover, try on products like that lipstick, like we showed earlier. All of that stuff exists in Pinterest. So it becomes such a beautifully immersive experience, from discovering something to trying on to evaluating it to purchasing it, all without leaving Pinterest. And I think they've got a really clear vision of what the future of commerce looks like. And the future of commerce very much is going to be social driven. So very, very interesting. YouTube, only one small update. YouTube Shorts has been rolling out in the US and is rolling out to the UK. Apparently it's rolled out, but I'm actually just checking my YouTube app now. Cue everyone else on the call doing this. Hey, I've got it at last. I didn't have it last week, so I can now create a short, which is very exciting. Shorts is their approach to TikTok. It's done really well in the US, and now it's coming to the UK. They've got 2 billion monthly active users, as we saw. So YouTube have some significant power. YouTube have tried to venture into more kind of typical social media before without success. So I'm curious to know whether this will work in this approach. The bit that I think is going to be really in their sweet spot, though, is in the consumption of these shorts. A lot of YouTube viewing is on like a smart TV, not a mobile, which actually lends itself to passive content consumption really, really well, right? So I'm sure we've all watched YouTube on a TV. You know, you can just go on a content binge very easily and watch it like you would do a normal TV channel. So that's where shorts will be really powerful. And it also means that if we're creating content for Reels and TikTok already, we can really easily embed shorts as part of our strategy and start to use shorts as a way to maximize the reach of our content. We've been talking about TikTok a lot, so there we go. Let's talk about some updates to TikTok. How are we doing for time? Yeah, about on time. And now they now allow you to schedule live events, which is good. So if you want to do like live Q&As, etc., you can now do that on TikTok. I think this is the big news though for everyone that's on this session. They launched Behind the Business series for SMEs. So if you just Google TikTok Behind the Business, it's a whole load of case studies and tutorials on how small businesses have used TikTok to leverage growth. Not your Nike and Adidas of the world that that always nail these platforms because they got the budgets to do so, but people like you and I that have actually made this work, figured it out. So TikTok are doing a lot about education. So yeah, using that as a tool. And what on earth is Spotify doing on this? This is the final thing, is that Spotify are venturing into audio first social. And here comes another Clubhouse rival. Yeah, they called it Green Room. Once again, it's another way, works exactly like Clubhouse and Facebook audio rooms and Twitter audio spaces. Jury's out, in my view, as to whether this will work or not. I'm going to let you know that it's available. We'll talk whether it grows or not. Spotify are a core place where people consume podcasts, so it kind of creates a nice interactive extension to podcasts. But will Spotify's subscriber base and user base really want to go and consume like live content when the content consumption behaviors on Spotify are all on demand? So we'll see how that takes off. But yeah, just want to let you know. But we have made it. We've made it, and on time, which is a shocker for me. So let's leave you with a summary. Battle between TikTok and Instagram is heating up. In terms of user numbers, TikTok will overtake them, but they're absolutely smashing them in terms of the time spent on app. So that's the bit that's the biggest threat to Instagram. And even Mark Zuckerberg said like TikTok is the biggest threat we've seen to our business yet. So that goes to show quite the recognition of TikTok. Twitter Blue, will it show a new route forward by social, not driven by ads, actually driven by smaller, tight-knit communities where people subscribe to the things that they want to see, rather than it just being a free-for-all, collecting lots of followers and ads being served? Is that the new normal for social? We'll have to wait and see, but yeah, it could be a very interesting direction. Facebook and Twitter news subscriptions, once again, deeper engagement, connection with our audience. I love these newsletter subscriptions and that as an approach. Yeah, big fan of that. More marketplaces and creator funds are going to pave the way for more influencers. We'll see more creators, more communities be created by these individuals with influence. Gives us more opportunity to collaborate with more people. Collaboration as part of your content strategy should be absolutely a core. If you take nothing else away from this session, I would think about that. E-commerce will be a new dawn for live streaming and will lead social growth. We spoke about how much like Facebook Live had driven interactions. You'll see much more happening around like live streamed e-commerce. So, people either running a product demonstration or doing a cookery class and people being able to purchase products directly through that live. You're going to see a lot of that. E-commerce, once again, absolutely central to social's growth. And the audio first war is just getting started. I think everyone's shown their hands now. LinkedIn a little bit behind, so I'm expecting LinkedIn's launch of this soon. But after that, we're pretty much done. Everyone's kind of shown their audio first hand. So I don't expect Clubhouse to stand the test of time, but I'm going to be very interested to see, what happens with the rest of these platforms. And with that, we are done.
Wow, take a deep breath, everyone. This has been a lot, and as always, there's been lots of amazing insights, but also the explanation of what it means and how we should really work with this information. So thank you, Andy. It was super helpful. And we have a couple of questions, so I will dive in straight away.
Do it.
The first one is from Dana, and she's asking if pivoting from Instagram means that it will become increasingly difficult for brands whose primary content isn't entertaining.
Fantastic point. Yes, absolutely. I think that is a word of warning for brands on Instagram. Like, for example, our content won't work on Instagram going forward, the stuff we do here at ContentCal. So we're going to need to pivot it. And to give you an idea actually of how we're pivoting it, because we're already on it, is that we've actually set up a new Instagram account called Confessions of a Content Marketer, where it's all about people anonymously sharing their content marketing fails, of which I have a lot of them. But having that then creates some really nice, rich, entertaining content in a kind of slightly non-branded way. So that's how we're pivoting. But yes, you don't need to make this change now. Like, this is going to be a long pivot, but I think you're absolutely right to call this out. It's definitely a flag for our content strategies to think, right, we either get this entertaining, we pivot it slightly, or we start to think about new platforms for future growth.
Exactly. It's both really good points in terms of either you need to really step up your content game and start thinking more creatively about how you can create these educational kind of edutainment, or what are the mixture words for really entertaining content that is educational and really helps people to connect with the brand, but really the quality of the content will need to go up. Or simply if really going out of the way and create super entertaining, fun reels and similar content to that is not your thing and it is not for everyone, then it might be time for reconsidering which platforms you should really focus. And it might mean that different platforms will, new platforms or new tools on old platforms will actually open up a completely new set of opportunities for people.
Definitely agree. And I would think, just link to that very quickly, look at that TikTok Behind the Business series, because you'll see typical boring businesses doing well on TikTok. So it's not out of the question for boring businesses to be entertaining. So, and it's just about a case of getting inspiration as to what would work for you. So I definitely recommend that. So carry on.
Quick question from Tanya about the postings when you were showing the best time to post. Were there in the Greenwich time or any other time zones?
Brilliant question. GMT, correct.
GMT, okay. Cool. So it was my question in terms of audio. So obviously we see that audio is being added everywhere, but is audio still a huge kind of a trend that people should be considering, or is it kind of after the initial hype in the beginning of this year, kind of losing its general appeal because of the FOMO and is becoming more, not necessarily niche, but more strategically used to, or is there still a lot of noise around this?
That's a very good question. I have an opinion on it, but yeah, definitely not fact. If you run a podcast already, I think it makes sense, right? Because I love the interactive nature of a podcast. You can have a Q&A with your guest speaker. I think that makes sense. If you run a Facebook group already, that I think it makes sense, right? It's a different way to experiment, because obviously we're doing this. This is going out on Facebook Live into your group as well, right? Okay, so yeah, potentially there are circumstances where audio only is fine, right? Lunchtime, your viewers could go out and take a walk and can learn at the same time. So I think that makes sense to experiment. Whether you'll see, the same uptake, I don't know. So in those two scenarios, I think it makes sense. But to build content that is just audio only, I feel like the novelty's worn off, but I don't know. It's because you and I are in the marketing business and we just hear it all the time. Whether we just get a bit bored of it. It's a content format at the end of the day. It's like saying, oh, should we do link posts or video posts or image posts? If it's the right thing to do for the content format, then do it. But I don't think that's why I don't think Clubhouse will survive or it'll be a niche thing over the period of the time, not a massive social platform, because it works for some scenarios, just not all of them. So it's nice to have it as a format, but to have it as its own thing doesn't make sense.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I have the same feeling that audio will become part of other platforms, like the audio communication, that it will become part of obviously others are integrating it now, but Clubhouse on its own, I wouldn't recommend it to too many people immediately to really go and focus on audio only, or to try to now when Clubhouse is finally available on Android after the initial a little bit of a wobble with kind of a launch, that maybe it's still not the right place for everyone to go.
I agree. It's gone very quiet on Clubhouse updates recently. I've got literally nothing to report. So no news actually in the world of tech means not good news.
Bad news.
Yeah. Interested. See what happens. Yeah.
We have a question or statement from Tana saying that some reels are performing fantastically in a matter of a few hours and using the same hashtags. Others perform very poorly. And I have the same experience with my client. You're doing similar kind of content with similar hashtags. Once it really goes off, another time it really flops. So do you have any insights in, is it better to keep rotating the hashtags, or is it the best time to really post reels?
I think it's basically like trying to hit a moving target with this, because quite frankly, Instagram are trying so many different things with their algorithm continually that to expect any linearity in results would be, we basically shouldn't expect any linearity in results, that is the biggest shame of social media marketing in general, right? Because there is no consistency to it. Honestly, I was about to say the only thing you can do is I have no other suggestions other than the fact that I think it's brilliant that you're doing it and you're tracking this, and I would just track it over a period of time where if we can see any linearity between it. But already you're so far ahead of most people I speak to that they're actually tracking this already. Most people just put out content and hit and hope. So but I'm not surprised that we're seeing differences in results, because there are too many other variables for what Instagram wants to show on that day to ever expect the same results all the time. So my view would be continue experimentation, continue analysis, and then someday you might start to see some trend. But I'm really pleased you're doing it. It's great that you're starting to see some results from it already. So I would take that as a massive win already.
I love the point that you just made in terms of that you need to experiment, you need to monitor and measure how it's going, but also the emphasis on not getting so obsessed with numbers for every single post, for a standalone post, or for a couple of posts, especially on platforms like Instagram that are so fast changing that, there is a drop in engagement, there is a drop in this, there is a change of this, and things that worked last month are not working this month. And before you figure it out, another new thing is coming. So definitely looking at the bigger picture, longer term results, looking what the trends are showing in there. But especially for small businesses, people who are doing their own marketing or have a very small team, I really am so happy that we kind of were able to give them the permission not to freak out too much, not to get too obsessed about every single number, even though it's also the reels have now some sort of analytics we can start measuring and monitoring. But it's also important to really remember the big picture, the long term. And I mean like long term, not a month or two, but long term, 6, 12, 18 months of a kind of an analysis of data, but also being so aware of all the things that have been changing in the landscape that make really hard to measure consistent results and tie the numbers to meaningful outcomes and lessons. So thank you. This was a great point.
Definitely agree. And just for reference as well on that point is that we no longer report our content marketing data and results outside of a quarter. We'll only look at it across a month, because unless you step back, you will never see a trend if you're too far in the detail. Some posts will do well, some will bomb, and it is the same for everyone. Even those massive influencers and such. If you look at a huge influencer, let's take someone like Stephen Bartlett. If you look through his post on LinkedIn, you'll only ever be shown the posts in the feed that have 30,000 likes, right? But you look, he did one yesterday with 200 likes. So in his world, that utterly bombed. Doesn't mean he's going to stop doing it. Over the fullness of time, however, he will have seen growth. And it's all about, and I'm starting to coach on this a lot, just take a step back. Don't get fixated with immediate growth on social. It takes time to breathe. So yes, the point you say about getting permission to step back, that is a very good statement.
I think especially in the small business world, I noticed that especially in the past couple of months, there's been lots of anxiety and issues coming from people, small businesses who see that their results are plummeting, that what has been working is not working. Obviously, there's so much pressures already in the world that we're living, and then getting really upset about the results, obsessed with the results, and understanding that if we have high expectations of every single post, and if we really get obsessed and watch every single post, how it performs, we can really kind of set ourselves for big issues in terms of our mental health and our sanity, because if we're expecting certain results, our dopamine is really high up, and we really have these expectations that when we don't get the results, there's like a massive hit, there's a massive shock for our system that really flushes us with all the emotions that we really then lead us to mental health issues and depression and anxiety. So kind of going from the human aspect of social media and marketing and business, I really am happy that we can give people this kind of permission as a marketers, that it's okay not to be so obsessed, and it's okay not to watch every single number. It's great to get a bigger picture and look for trends, but at the same time, if one post gets 10, I know that for my clients, some of the videos get 10 views and some get 2,000 views, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, 100%. So yeah, you speak a lot of sense, Lenka.
And we have only one last comment. It's not a question. It's a comment from Tanya, who said that she's been using YouTube Shorts, not much different in terms of engagement. I guess that it's a very interesting point, again, to see how much engagement you were expecting. What are you comparing the engagement to? Is it compared to YouTube long form, or is it to Shorts on other platforms? And given that YouTube Shorts are still quite new, it's definitely something to play around with, experiment. But again, do not get too obsessed, too worried about what the results are immediately, because they can be way too high or way too low, and it's very hard to say why.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's I love the fact you're on this already, Tanya. So that is brilliant. And yeah, I think there's always an expectation where it's like a new thing. We're going to dive onto the newest and shiniest thing, do a few posts and go, oh, it didn't work, or it did. The fact is, I would never want to investigate a platform unless there is a longer term strategy with it, if it properly makes sense for your business. Not saying that it doesn't in this instance, Tanya, it might well do. And I'm really keen to hear of like how you get on with it, because I haven't heard of anyone applying that to their strategy yet. So you're well ahead of the curve there, which is great. But yeah, I just a word on all this kind of stuff, because you might go, I might tell you, oh, it's 2 billion monthly active users and this is new and I'm excited about it. There's no point like doing a couple of posts and go, oh, it didn't really work. That's never going to work unless you actually apply a really good logical strategy. It makes sense for your business to do that. You do lots of other short form entertainment value content that fits that mold, and you build. And if you expect results in the short term, you're basically you should be paying money for social media advertising if you want results in the short term. If you want to build a community that will sustain organic growth over the period, you need to be thinking, what am I doing for the next year at least? So there is no short-term hacks, and I will campaign that to my end of my days, that hacks do not exist in the world of social that you actually really want to get. Going viral should never be an objective. We don't want spikes. We want to have consistent linear growth over time. And that's what all our strategy should lean towards.
This is incredible. And it makes me so happy to end up on this note of you should really have a long-term plan. You should really focus on the strategy before you focus on the individual tactics, before you focus on which platform you go for, which type of content you create, and all of that, which really nicely leads me to my final point of decision, and that's tell everyone about this year's Cambridge Social Media Day, which will take place online. We are sticking to the virtual world for the time being because the real world is way too messy and way too complicated. And also, we this way allow a lot more people the comfort to be able to come and have the luxury of use the time to learn the way they want without the stress to travel, accommodation, traffic, childcare, stuff like that. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone in October, 19th and 20th of October. And the overall theme of this year's event is Fuck the Tactics, Focus on Strategy. So there will be lots of strategic, big picture, holistic talks about marketing and really bringing the bigger picture into social media marketing, which then you can support by all these Facebook Lives and online training we are providing on a weekly basis, and we will be providing as long as we can. So I will send the link to book your tickets if you haven't got yours already in the comments. But if you don't have any questions, one last check for the comments. And yeah, that's it. Hope everyone enjoyed it. I got a couple of comments from Tim, thank you, and Tana says, as always, very useful info by Andy. Thank you so much. So as Tana said, thank you so much, Andy, and thank you everyone for watching. Have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye-bye.